Okay, what we're doing today is we're putting some of these 3-bolt exhaust flanges on these shovel heads. And the first thing that we have to do, of course, is clean the cylinder heads. We have to get all the pores of the metal clean, and as well as glass beading and putting them in the tank and washing them and all that sort of stuff. They have to be ground on and polished in areas where we're going to actually apply the weld, which we're going to show you right now. These flanges are made by us, and we mark the side of them so that you guys can't get mixed up when you're putting them on. They'll only go one way. They're machined as a matched pair so that they can't be twisted or anything like that. You can't swap the front with the back or any of that sort of stuff. They've got to go on exactly the way that they're made when we machine them. So first we start out by taking the flange, and we grind approximately 1/8 of an inch wide at a 45-degree angle in here, so that the weld will have plenty of room to penetrate. And we also do that with the cylinder heads, as we're going to show you right now. Basically, this grinder makes a lot of noise, so I'm just going to kind of give you a rough idea of what it looks like when we do it. And that's just to be sure we have enough room for the weld to penetrate. These things are made out of 356 grade alloy, and they're hardened on top of that to give the most strength and weldability. And what we do with these cylinder heads, now we take these heads, and I'm going to change my cutter here in a second, but for now we'll do the same thing with the head. All these shovel heads are different. Some of them already have a pretty wide area in here, and some of them don't, but we make sure that they have enough before we weld them. There's one. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now we're going to polish some areas that are going to directly receive the weld, just to be sure there's no glass beads impregnated in the metal. And starting right here is one of them. And we know we're going to weld right here. We weld all the way around the top and down the sides on the front one, so it actually looks like it's part of the casting when they're on the bike. When we get done with these things, you won't know that they weren't made that way at the factory. Okay, there's the front one done. And the back one, let's see. Like this. Okay, here. Now this is just to be sure it's clean enough to that nothing happens to the weld. As you can see, we go to extremes to get these things to stay on here. And you know, we guarantee they will. Okay, now we get to line them up. Now, let's start with the front one because it's the easy one. We take the front one, we got a line here. Okay, the line always goes to the on the front head, it goes to the inside or to the bottom side. And what we do is we use a tool like this, which is basically just a piece of 1 3/4 exhaust pipe. We've got a flange welded on it, but for a guy that just does it one time, you really don't need a flange welder. We stick the thing in there, and Take a little hammer and tap it in, make sure it's square. You want to be sure that this thing is square, that it's not cocked one way or the other. It's got to rotate freely on the flange, and what we do is we take this thing and we zero it up on the head. We straighten it up on the head, making sure that the blue line is on the bottom, like that. We very carefully flip the thing over, like that. Take the blue magic marker, make a couple of marks here across it. That's usually good enough, but we like them precise. So after we take the marker, we take a scribe and put a couple of lines across it like that. So when I give it to the welder, he lines it up like that, and it's dead nuts. Okay, so this is the way it goes to the welder. Actually, like that. He assembles it. We just take it apart, and the guy, when he puts it together, he lines it up like so and gets it all zeroed up, and then he makes his weld, starts to make his weld. These things get welded all the way around the inside, as well as around the front, totally down both sides of the front head. Plus he also runs a bead down the bottom. Okay, now we can go to the rear head and show you how that's done. Okay, so we're going to mark this. We're going to mark this with a little F, so that the welder doesn't confuse the front with the rear, because they have to be on the right head. Okay, here we go. We're going to start with the rear. Now this takes a couple of different tools to do this. In our instructions for you guys that want to put them on yourself, we suggest you use a square, which I'm going to show you. Okay, this square is a little large, but what we do is basically tell you guys to eyeball this thing up across the valve guides and make sure it's straight. And when you put your flange on, the flange should be square with the square, basically. If you can get the picture there. Here, let's put the tool in it, like that. Rotates freely, nice and square. Okay, this is how we instruct you to do it if you're going to do it yourself with an everyday square. Now the blue line has got to go to the inside, like this. Okay, that's how you do it. And you can pretty much, if you want to use a measuring device to measure it, that's fine, to be sure you've got the square, divided evenly across the valve guides. What we use, because we do a lot of them, is a tool like this. It's just a piece of angle iron that we've got welded up on there, and what it does is it gives you basically the same location for this flange, as you can see. And once we've established the location, I'm just eyeballing it to be sure it's square with the guides. We want this thing dead nuts on the money. And there it is. Dead nuts on the money, except it's not. It's not square. So we're going to start over again. And in fact, this little piece of casting is kind of bothering me right here. Okay, let's start it again. Here we go. Can you eyeball it across the valve guides to make sure it's square like that? Take your time. There's no hurry when you're doing this. It's more important to be sure that this thing is just exactly in the right place. It's very important, because the frame tube runs right by there, and there's only about this much clearance between this flange and the frame tube. So if you've got this thing off just a little bit, you're going to have to make some modifications later that may not be so easy to do. It's better to do it right the first time. And that looks pretty damn good right there. Okay, we're going to hold this guy in place. We're going to give it the same treatment we did the front one. Mark it with the magic marker. Take the scribe, make a couple of slices across it like that, and it's ready for the welder. After the heads come back from the welder, then we really have to put some time into it in grinding and polishing all the welds, and then glass beating the mess. And don't forget, the things are welded completely all the way around on the inside. The diameter has to be just so. There has to be just a certain amount of clearance for the pipe to go in. And you know, we take care of all of that, and then we glass beat over top of the polish. When you get the things back, they look like they were born that way. So for you guys that want to do your own, you know, that's okay. If you're qualified in welding Harley castings, I would say sure. But if you are not familiar with welding these particular kind of castings, because of the porosity and the impurities in this metal, you best have us put them on. Okay, we just got the heads back from the welder. As you can see, look at the camera and get the camera in here and focus on this weld. It's a work of art. It's really a beautiful thing. This guy puts it together. Take a close look. Zoom in there, and weld is perfectly clean. No porosity around the edges. You can see a little bit of pollution that's come out of the casting. We're going to remove the flange. And I'm narrating this thing. Our audio equipment took a shit, and we're checking to see the mark is right on the mark. This flange can't be rotated like this or like that. It's got to be exactly where we machine it when we manufacture the things. I'm going to stand this thing up here and get the camera in there. We weld all the way around the inside. As you can see, there's a lot of pollution come out of the pores. If you look at those black streaks in the background, the weld itself is pretty nice. It's pretty porous free. All this is going to get ground and polished and glass beaded, and here's the finished product. Take a look at this. Get the focus in here. As you can see, we've ground and polished and glass beaded over the weld, and when you take a look at it, it's just beautiful. It looks like it was made that way at the factory. Real clean, nice fit. No sign of any kind of pores or cracks or grinding marks. It's on there for life. Okay, I'm taking the flange off here again, and we're going to give you a little interior shot. Get the focus up there, and how we fit that. We grind that weld till it fits the ID of the pipe exactly. We clean it about 1/4 of an inch down into the spigot so that the pipe will fit down in there. I'm pointing at the high spot. That's the point at which the ID is exactly the same as the pipe. We taper that weld up so that it's like a little ramp for the exhaust gas to flow into the pipe. We take these flanges, and this is a steel part. We polish, clean all the burrs off. There's the F mark for front. We put it back on here, making sure that the mark is lined up. I'm talking away here, but I don't know what I'm saying. It's probably something to do with the installation instructions. We've got a 6-pager, and with 3 pages of photographs for you guys. So we give you every advantage on doing this. When it's on the motor, it's virtually undetectable. When you put the pipe in the flange, you snug up the bolts, and you put 3 tacks on the pipe there at the flange, with all the clamps and the exhaust system bolted down hard. Also, the instructions cover this specifically. The instructions are pretty explicit, so you guys won't have any problems. There's the before and after shot. There's the C5A that we've been using on bolts and spark plug thread stuff that gets really hot. We put a little bit here on these threads. It's made by FLO, and it's copper base, high temp, and it'll make the threads last a lifetime. Won't burn off. You know how exhaust bolts have a tendency to get dry and seize up? This stuff prevents that. We're probably winding this segment up. It looks like it's just about over. Talking about torquing the bolts, put them to factory specs, and be sure to follow the instructions we send you guys. That sort of thing. There goes my telephone again. Let's see who it is. Yeah, it's Tracy. He's telling me about his new record with his Evolution Sportster. It's a project we've been working on him on with.